is when you go to Google Scholar, you can type in any search terms, and it will give you a list of results that match those search terms. And it's possible to go to Advanced Search and customize how exactly you're searching. So it's not as robust as options that PubMed or PsycInfo or Medline allow you to use, but I, for example, find that being able to use an exact phrase so that the two words have to be together, like help-seeking stigma, for example, I might want it to be specific to help-seeking stigma, so I'd put a phrase in like that rather than help-seeking showing up in one part of the article and stigma showing up in the other part of the article, which would be allowed if I just did all of the words. Without the words allows you to rule out things in the title of the article if you want to get super concise articles that are specifically about that thing named in the title, but that's a pretty aggressive way. And then the authored and published in is especially helpful if I want to look for examples of how people talked about multivariate regression or did data cleaning or structural equation modeling in our flagship journal of Counseling Psych. I can put Journal of Counseling Psych in here and then search for those terms, which is really nice, and then you can limit it by date. But after searching for a given thing, what you can do is create an alert, which is a really nice thing. And by the way, I usually want to exclude patents since I'm not interested in that, and choosing a custom date range is very helpful. So let's say I want to create alert for this thing, for this current search, whether it's an advanced or a simple search. So I go to alert, and it automatically fills out the nature of the alert query. So in this case, my last settings, it was looking for these terms in the title, so it already has that filled in here. If throughout the articles, what email you want the alert sent to, and then number of results to show. I usually show up to 20 results because I don't mind getting them all, and then you can create that alert. And so to look at my existing alerts, it's a combination of things. First is I look for new articles from certain scholars, so my colleague Melanie Brewster, and then there's some other people, Jorm Schomeris, Tracy Vogel, Parent, etc. So people who I work with or who do scholarship in this area that I want to keep track of, I look for new articles by those authors. And usually these authors already have Google Scholar profiles, so it helps ensure the accuracy of making sure I know what stuff is coming up for them. Other things that I like to do are stuff related to certain statistics that I'm interested in. So with my bifactor modeling, I'm interested in new articles that mention both bifactor stuff and then some of these more advanced bifactor aspects. So it won't just return bifactor stuff, but it has to be bifactor and also talks about some of these advanced bifactor methods. So I select only those articles that are super pertinent to my interests. What else? Look for, given I do help-seeking research, I put in a bunch of synonyms for that might come up. So I'm looking for articles on care-seeking or care utilization or treatment barriers, plus mental or behavioral. So I'm looking for treatment utilization as it relates to mental or behavioral health, not just physical health or other sorts of things. So it has to mention either of these terms and has to mention at least one of these terms over here. Similarly, my other search to try and complete this is help-seeking or treatment-seeking or treatment utilization. So these are kind of 6 terms that are frequently used in the help-seeking research to refer to this. And again, it must be mental or behavioral flavor. So those are some of the searches that I do. In terms of how it actually looks. Where did that go? Okay. So I'm going to show you some examples of how this stuff looks once it's created. So for example, here's a recent Scholar alert for help-seeking or treatment-seeking or treatment utilization. So when you click on it, you can see how it looks. So it'll provide the hyperlinked title, authors, journal name, and then it'll take out portions of the article, whether it's from the abstract or the body or whatever, where a critical mass of those key terms were mentioned. So here it's picking up on mental being pretty close to help seeking, and mental. So it gets pulled up here, for example. So what I do is I look through this list of possible articles, and some of them will be relevant to my work in my lab and some won't. So for example, self-stigma of mental illness and help-seeking among school counselors. That's interest. I'm interested in self-stigma of mental illness and help-seeking, and the population is relevant. So I go ahead and click on this article, and what I do is, usually I'm doing this on my phone during odd hours when I have a little bit of time, and I will go to bookmark the page, and I have, let's see if I can pull it up. Okay, yeah, so in my mobile bookmarks here, I already have recreated my folder structure from my literature collection. So I think I talked about this in the other video. In this lit collection, which is on Google Drive, it's shared with all the core members of my lab, so we all have access to this literature collection where articles, PDFs of articles have been placed into their proper place in the literature collection. So all of these folders are different topics, and so when I go to bookmark a new article, I bookmark it in the proper folder. So these folders are all just a bookmark folder within Google Chrome, and then I'll ask an RA to occasionally look through the bookmarks that I've created. I give them access to the bookmarks in each of these folders, and any new stuff that's been bookmarked I ask them to download a PDF copy of and then insert that PDF into the proper place in the actual lit collection. So that's the system that we use. So any relevant articles I will bookmark as I'm looking through them. I don't do drug stuff right now, so not considering that. The use of social norms and treatment-seeking attitudes and preliminary behaviors. Maybe, possibly. I think I'd have to click on this to learn a bit more. If it's a PDF, sometimes that means it's not from a peer-reviewed journal. A lot of times that means it's like a dissertation. That can, yeah, and you can see a scholar work. So already I can tell it's like a dissertation or a thesis. And I'm only sometimes interested in those because I usually wait till something comes out in print, because anybody can get anything out as a thesis or a dissertation, and it's not peer reviewed just by their committee. And a lot of stuff stops short of being published, and it's harder to cite something if it wasn't peer reviewed. It's a little seen as a little like less rigorous. So I usually only will bookmark and obtain theses or dissertations that are extremely relevant and important. So I probably wouldn't download this since it's still in that preliminary stage. That seems less relevant to my work. If I wanted to download some stuff on the relationship of men and mental health and help seeking, that might be good. So I basically go through and click stuff that's relevant and not, and you can always cancel alert or go back and look at what alerts you have. So this is where I go for that. So I go through that. Here's how new citations are mentioned. So actually that article that we were just looking at apparently cited one of the papers that I was on. And so I also get new citations to my articles, so I can see who's citing my work and what's it about, and it can also often help me stay up on new stuff that's coming out in my area. So those new citations to my articles are nice. I think there's a setting in Google Scholar that allows you to get those. Here's a Google Scholar alert for Patrick Corrigan. So this is something that, I don't see their name on here, so that might be an error. That's another thing. Google Scholar isn't perfect. Sometimes the way it will create alerts is inaccurate, or it will pull something that it thinks is an article, but it's not actually, and so the formatting will be garbled. So it's not perfect, but it's still pretty good. And you tend to get alerts periodically. So like I got a help seeking or treatment seeking today on the 19th, and 4 days ago, I got a Google Scholar thing on other articles in the same topic a few days ago. So they come periodically, and so I have a backlog of things to look through. So that's some of the stuff I do with Google Scholar that's very helpful and helps me stay up to date on stuff. So, and by doing these Google alerts, it's likely that I will catch important things. They'll be brought right to my inbox rather than me having to skim through journals, because there's a lot of different journals that publish help-seeking research. There's not just 2, 3, or 4 journals, and so I can't widely read a bunch of journals just trolling for stuff on my issue. I could wait till I'm doing a new project to then do a separate lit review and see what's been published on a given topic, but I like to stay up to date and hear about what's cutting edge and get new ideas based on what articles are coming out. So I really like these alerts because it lets me know as soon as something comes out, so I'm aware of it. And so if I'm doing a similar project, I'm less likely to get scooped on it because I know what else is available. There are other services like SAGE and the American Psychological Association who have journals, and they have PsychAlerts. So there are certain journals that I like to see what's coming out in them periodically, and so I sign up for their PsychAlerts. So for example, the PsychAlerts from APA can track the journal Cultural Diversity and Ethnic Minority Psychology. And so I can look through and see who's publishing what stuff is coming out, just because I'm interested in this topic. So this is in addition to the Google Scholar alerts. I'm just interested in getting a sense of what sort of scholarship is coming out in journals that are of interest to me. So Cultural Diversity, Journal of Diversity in Higher Education, I have Google alerts for the Counseling Psychologist, for the Journal of Counseling Psychology, for the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, for Psych Bulletin. So big journals that I want to kind of get a sense of what kind of scholarship is being published in. It can be helpful to have alerts as well, just so you can see the type of stuff, because sometimes people will publish an article on a new area or that's using a new method, and I can be alerted to that when I look through the table of contents for a new journal, and it might give me a chance to download that article and read up on that new methodology, which might give me inspiration for something I want to do in my own area. So those are some of the things I'm doing. I also do the COAST funding alerts through my Pivot profile, which most of universities have. Pay for access to Pivot, which allows you to set up funding alerts for different types of grants related to your areas of expertise. And that's a whole other video for another time, but that's also very helpful to keep up on what sort of funding opportunities possibly related to your interests are coming up. So I hope this brief overview of how to use Google Scholar alerts and PsychAlerts and other similar stuff is helpful. So thanks.